NAASR had to establish itself as an organization. We had to have office space and so forth. So the first office was sublet from Greg Adamian.
Often as I drive through Harvard Square and glance toward the doorway of 1430 Massachusetts Avenue, I think back to my days in the tiny second-floor, one-room office above the Harvard Coop, which was NAASR's headquarters in the mid to late 50s. I remember sitting across from Munich at a small table when he said, "So, why do you want to work for NAASR?" With no hesitation, I told him I was looking for a challenge. He must have been pleased with my response because he hired me. That was the beginning of 4 decades of working together.
55 to 66, that's 11 years before we make a move into our own property. And then by the time we got to Mount Auburn Street, we had a full-time secretary, and much of the work was done by volunteers. And of course, all the time I put in was volunteer time. And many a day I would be there until 2 in the morning, and then have to get up and go to work at 8 o'clock in the same day. We really had a dedicated group of girls who volunteered and came in on a regular schedule, and they had regular duties, and they carried them out. They were fantastic. Of course, after 22 years, this building had become inadequate, and during the course of our looking around, Reverend Hartunian called me on a Sunday, and he says, "You know, the building across the street from the church is coming up for sale."
NAASR soon outgrew the house in Cambridge, and in 1989 purchased the present building at 395 Concord Avenue in Belmont.
We're in the main area of the Edward and Helen Mardigian Armenian Reference and Research Library here at NAASR, which has been gathered through the decades and continues to grow, mainly from collections donated to us by friends and members, and others through NAASR acquisitions. And there are some 15,000 books and periodicals, as well as personal papers and archives and manuscripts and other like materials. And we get a lot of requests from scholars and researchers and people doing genealogy, looking for information on the villages where their ancestors came from, like Karpert or Adana or Malatya, or any of the other many villages and cities in the old country.
Yes, we have had younger students visit the library to do their papers. We've had high school students from Watertown and Belmont Public High Schools, and we've also had college students from the local colleges.
NAASR has never failed to help me, to come to my rescue when I've needed sources, books, any information, practical, impractical, substantial, very insubstantial, even the phone number for someone.
NAASR has played a unique role not only in promoting Armenian studies in American universities, but particularly in disseminating the results of Armenian studies, the research that has been done by scholars in Armenian studies. Here again, it's hard to believe that in the 1950s, you could probably count on the fingers of 2 hands the numbers of books in English on Armenian subjects, whereas today you have a huge collection of publications that are available to the public. And I think that all of that got its start with NAASR.
Well, you know, I'm both an historian and a writer, and it never ceases to amaze me the collection that NAASR has in its bookstore. I believe that NAASR has the largest collection of English language books on Armenians.
NAASR has also had a series of programs that have been extremely popular, lectures, workshops that have benefited the local community, and hopefully in the future they will travel more to other parts of the country so others can benefit from these programs as well. NAASR has also disseminated information through conferences, some of them bringing together scholars on specific topics?
For example, one of the conferences which I thought was absolutely necessary, not just for Boston or the United States, but for the whole of the Armenian academic scholarly community, the Conference on the State of Armenian Studies.
We don't have strong institutions which are working on the genocide. In that sense, the role of NAASR is very important, disseminating the informations, and at the same time they are a part of the active political process in this country.
Although NAASR was not limited to the promotion of Armenian genocide studies and more in terms of literature and classic studies, but it has its legacy in the promotion of Armenian genocide studies.
We are working with Facing History and ourselves to get the Armenian genocide program into the schools. It is incredibly important for us to focus our endeavors on young people.
I would think Manu Gyug was our bridge. He was our bridge to the history. He was our confidant. He wanted us to flourish, and he recognized that we needed to develop and to learn it. So NAASR was our teacher.
I think that NAASR, with its academic links between various Armenian and American educational, research and publishing organizations, can become a very effective link between these organizations in the United States and the same in Armenia.
It's good for the younger students, academic people, to learn more about their background, and I think NAASR has been a very valuable source in the greater Boston area.
I had heard about this library that NAASR had and was open to the public for young students and adults to come in and research as much as they could. So I went there and spent a couple hours in the library and found really invaluable material that was very, very helpful with my research project.
The fullness of our life, fullness of our history, the fullness of our experiences, political, social, educational, religious. That's all told here in one form or another during the year, in lecture after lecture.
With the support of the Board of Directors and our professional staff, Sandra Jarigian and Mark Mamigonian, we have undertaken a very ambitious goal for our capital campaign of $2 million in order to promote and support the programs and initiatives which we feel are important as we enter the next century.
And not only have we reached the 50, but there's enough to do for another 50 years at least.